All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast for another episode. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Quirk. I'm a pediatrician and a run coach and the founder of Mindful Marathon. And today I have a very special guest with me. I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Rachel Beanland. She is a public health medicine specialist, a physician coach, and a mindfulness and meditation teacher. She lives in the foothills of the Pyrenees Mountains in France, which sounds absolutely beautiful, where she supports clients with online offers and lives a low carbon lifestyle. She is passionate about holistic approaches to well-being and is on a mission to help doctors create mindful, flexible careers so they can make a greater impact, which is definitely something I can get behind. So, Dr. Rachel, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, Michelle.
Yeah, me too. Well, maybe want to start a little bit with your journey into running. Let's start there and see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So for me, actually, when I was a child, I loved doing sport, and I was actually really, really interested in sprinting. And I was, I like to think back that I was maybe quite fast, but I don't think I necessarily was. But my school was not very well resourced, so we had like a grass running track.
Okay.
We didn't really have any proper athletic facilities, but I was very grateful that my best friend at the time, her family were like super sporty. Like they were all into doing lots of team sports, lots of individual sports. And so she took me to go to our like town athletic club. And I started to join the athletic club, and we would go every week. So I would have been like 12, 13, and we would go every week and train with the athletic club. And running just became part of my life from then on. Like I think I've just continuously always found running as a way to begin with. It was always a way of keeping like active and keeping physically strong and fit.
Hmm.
And then over time it has really changed. My like relationship with running has really changed to something that now I find also keeps me physically strong and fit, but I also find it helps me mentally to feel really grounded and also to connect to my body differently. And I think I've learned that as I've learned how to connect to my body and to listen to my body. So my running has always been there. Like I think I've, done so many different types of running, and it has changed over time too.
Yeah, yeah. Can you speak a little bit to the that feeling of being grounded? How did you know that? Or maybe that's a good segue into how did you learn about mindfulness and get into that in the first place?
Yeah, so for me, for that sense of mindfulness, I was always someone who was quite chaotic. Like, I think as a child, I was always like that. As a teenager, I was always kind of thinking about what I was going to do, thinking about what had happened. And I can see now, if I look back at the early part of my career, I had a very chaotic lifestyle. Running was always part of it, but it was just like, I'm just going to go and do like 13K.
Uh-huh.
I would just do it. And I would enter events and it would be like, I'm just going to do this event. And I would not really do the training. I couldn't because I was working in hospital medicine at the time. I would never really commit to proper training. But one thing that I did do when I was really early on in my career is I went to a yoga class, and it was like in somebody's house, and it was completely dark. There was incense. And just for that like hour, I just had this sense of peace and of like just relaxation and a deep kind of connection to myself. And I always knew from that moment on that I kind of wanted to bring more of it into my world, but I just could never find the way to do that. And then there was a point where I was so chaotic at work, I really wasn't looking after my own well-being. And I know now probably I had signs of burnout, but I didn't really know that it was burnout at the time. And I decided to make quite a big change in the way my work life looked. And at that point, I thought, I need some of these skills. And that's when I returned to yoga and I started to do more regular yoga. And so through yoga, it really was the gateway for me to learn more about that practice of, being, and that sense of being able to focus on what you're doing and really bring that sense of feeling grounded and connecting to what you're doing. And I think that has just been able to transfer into every aspect of my life, including my running, that feeling of like, I'm going to be connected to what my body is doing and listen to what I'm doing and get that feedback. Whereas before, when I was running, it was like, I'm just pounding the streets to get my blood pressure and my heart rate kind of up a bit. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to feel great because I've done that. And I wasn't really able to see it as anything more than that. And what mindfulness, I think, has been able to do for me is bring it into my life in a much more intentional way when I'm running.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of what you say resonates. I mean, I'm just thinking back. I was also burned out, but didn't have the word for that. Like I couldn't have told you that's what was happening. But and really that time spent with myself running is what helped me get out of that. But I used to be, when I started running, I used to run with music a lot or listening to an audiobook or a podcast or something like that. And what happened, I think one day I just forgot my headphones. And so I was left to my own thoughts. And I liked that so much. That's how I started running without any headphones. So that's always kind of, if people ask, like, well, what's the first step that you would take as a runner in mindfulness? I would say maybe don't run with any headphones and just see what shows up.
Yeah.
But it can be hard
Yeah.
to do that. It can be hard to like not focus on something else. And yeah. But I think what
Yeah.
you say about pounding the pavement and just doing it to do it, sort of, and yeah, you feel good, but you might not know exactly why. I mean, all of those endorphins are there too.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think one thing that did change for me was that, so for a long time, I did a lot of road running. And that was kind of always what I did because I was living in towns and cities. I spent my whole life living in that environment. So it was just very natural for me to just, go out on the pavement. And then when I met my husband is a very, very keen fell runner. So in the UK, fell running is like trail running. It's very much up a mountain. It's like, doesn't always have a dedicated path. You're going point to point. And so through him, he kind of introduced me much more to trail running and that off-road sensation of running in different environments. And so for me, like I also love that aspect of connecting to nature around me when I'm running and just being able to sort of think like you notice little things on your run of what is around you. And that for me is really special about running too. And often I love it when I see like little signposts, someone's marked a route and you think, oh, wow, that's incredible, isn't it? That someone has been ahead of me and kind of marked this amazing little route. And now I'm running on it. And who else has run on this route with me? And those sort of really like connecting ideas when you're running, I find really lights me up. It gives me quite a sense of, connection to others and connection to nature too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's really beautiful. I like running in nature too. I'm not sure about running up the mountain, but it sounds really great. In terms of, you work with a lot of physicians and a lot of busy people. Sometimes it's hard when I work with my clients just to talk about rest and how rest shows up. How does rest show up in your life, and how do you share that with your clients who you coach?
Yeah. Yeah, such a good question. I think for me, one of the big shifts in my running journey was when I got injured. So 3 years ago, I had an accident, which was it's just, I mean, most accidents are just bizarre things that happen to you. I happened to fall off a electric bike that I'd borrowed off someone after a yoga class, and I fractured both my wrists and one of the vertebrae in my back.
Oh gosh.
And it was like a moment in my life where I'd never really had a moment where I'd had such physical injuries. And I had to really change my mindset to thinking, I don't know what my abilities are going to be in terms of doing yoga. I don't know what my abilities are going to be returning to running. I'm just going to have to start from this point, and I'm going to have to kind of just listen to what my body needs day by day and just allow it to tell me, and I'm going to like nurture it and give it what it needs. Yeah. And so that was the approach to my recovery. And from that, I was able to kind of start running again. But my approach to running is very different now, because what I do is I have an idea of, I might want to do, say, get to a certain distance, and I have like 20 sessions that I'm going to do to get to that distance. Previously, I would have been really like, I must do 3 sessions every week. But now what I try to do is I'm like, I'm going to just take this at my own pace. I'll get to the 20 when I get to the 20, but I'm just going to see how I feel after each one. And that was a massive mindset shift for me, to just be like, how do I feel today? Does it feel okay to go for a 5K run? And if it does, how do I feel afterwards? And what does my body need afterwards? Like, do I have any kind of aches and pains from previous injuries? Do I need to do other supportive exercise? Like, obviously yoga is a big thing for me. I try and do yoga every day. What are those things that my body really needs? And I think what is really similar with when I'm coaching my clients who are looking to make big changes in their lives is what I think is very similar. It's very easy to just focus on one thing. And actually, it's much more about looking at that whole holistic sense of what your world looks like what your life looks like, and what your body needs on a day-to-day basis. And I think that can apply to so many different aspects of our world, because it's not just about like being able to do one thing. It's about being able to do all those things in your life that make you feel 100% you. So I think that is what I try to support my clients with when they're looking to make a change in one aspect of their life. It tends to be their career that they come to me with, but actually it's like, what are all those other aspects of your life that are really important? And I think that's where that mindful approach of running and having different elements in your running schedule has been really helpful for me to understand what your body needs and what you need as a person. And so sometimes that is just rest, and it's like you don't need to run for a whole week. So I think it's just really connecting to like what it is that you need. And then once you know what you need, it's like the next step is not being afraid to actually create those boundaries to make it happen and make those things that you need come into your world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of what you say resonates, and it almost sounds very simple in some ways, but it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Especially for people who are, my coachees, we're all very good at following a training plan, right? Especially
Yeah.
physicians, right? Like you do these things and you go to school for this amount of time and follow this program and you come out as a physician, and we're very good at following a training plan. But if we have to deviate from that and have a little bit of flexibility with ourselves, it's like, hold on, I don't know how to do that, and press pause.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
where, yeah, that's where coaches come in, and yeah, and people you can find who can help you on your own mindfulness journey and connect with yourself. But yeah, having an outside party look at it and also give you permission to take rest, and then you have to give yourself permission to take rest.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the hardest things, is making that space. A lot of, think my work is really around those boundary settings, like really being able to say, right, this is what I want to do for myself. This is what I need to do for my own health and wellness. How can I communicate that to other people so that I can create that space for myself? So it might be that you just want to go for a 10-minute walk or a 10-minute run, or, go and have a moment of silence in a room and just be with yourself for 5 minutes. But if you don't know why you need that, and that's something you need, then it's hard to communicate that to other people and to make that space. So I think boundary setting, and from my experience, I mean, it's an ongoing practice for me. I have always had to really think about how I create my boundaries and keep those boundaries really healthy. And I find that with my clients, it's not something that I don't think many people who have problems with setting boundaries can just get a magical solution. It's like a practice. It's like something we have to always reel back in and notice, okay, I'm letting those boundaries be a little bit leaky. Now, what can I do to kind of, reinforce them a bit and prioritize myself again? Because particularly with healthcare professionals, I'm sure you find this when you have your coachees who are doctors, is that we're so used to giving to other people. We're so used to expending our energy outwards. So we're often not very good at really thinking about how much energy we have internally, and really guarding that energy, which I think is just so important in terms of being able to do whatever you want to do in your life, whether that's your career or your home life. Because if you don't have that energetic sense of being filled up for yourself, you can't give to other people.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And sometimes we don't recognize it until it's almost too late. Like it really, the cup is so full, it's like flowing over, and then we get sick, we get injured. yes, just crazy things happen and make us realize and snap back and say, oh, okay, maybe I did take on too much. But I think the real journey is stepping back sooner and kind of recognizing those flags far ahead of time before your cup is overflowing. But
Yeah.
it's hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you, I have a lot of people who are new to mindfulness, new to meditation, new to yoga and things like that. What would you recommend in terms of just like dipping a toe in? I know I usually start with people if they listen to music, just taking out headphones, like just a simple step to dip their toe into the waters, to connecting with themselves.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a nice thing. Yeah. I think for me, it's just, I love the breath, like the power of the breath, because we're always breathing, but actually we're often not very aware of how we're breathing. And so I think this can be really powerful also when you're running, to kind of just connect to what your breath is doing. Because by doing that, like you only, that breath that you have, that once in and once out, only happens for that moment. So it instantly brings you into that sense of mindfulness. And the beauty of the breath as well is that if we can focus on our breath, what we can often do is really go into that parasympathetic, like nervous system. So the parasympathetic nervous system is kind of all our nerves that are going to make us go into that like calm, like peaceful sense that we really want to bring more of into our life. So I think the breath is so powerful. So one thing I love to tell people is like when you wake up in the morning, is just have that moment of like just see what your breath is like and just bring your awareness to it. You don't necessarily need to take a deep breath in or out, but just notice it. Notice it's there and have that connection. And I think that can be a really beautiful way of kind of starting some of those mindfulness practices of observing what's going on and bringing that quality of focus to what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I love that. One thing I tried to have my runners do, and it has to do with the breath also, but trying to grade the run like on a level of effort. So like we use the pain scale 1 to 10, but when I say, run 3 miles easy, a lot of people don't know at the beginning what easy truly feels like. Like I know I used to just tie on my sneakers and go as far and as fast as I could and like huffing and puffing and like the bear was chasing me in the woods. But just having, I mean, sometimes that can take weeks or months to even realize what that level of effort means, but kind of doing a body scan, noticing the breath, your heart rate, if you're able to speak, or, if you were running with a friend, could you have a conversation? So all of those are just kind of ways in, but I love that waking up in the morning and starting with the breath. That's fabulous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because often when we wake up, it's like it's so easy just to get on with all the different tasks you might have ready for your day, and you're already thinking about them. And I had a client who the first thing in the morning she would do was pick up her phone, and suddenly she was on her work emails. And so immediately she'd thankfully she'd realized that this was a behavior that she just didn't want to continue with, because it was allowing all of her boundaries to immediately be overstepped by other people's potential priorities. And so I think if what you do in the first thing in the morning is it allows your self-care to be there, you're kind of telling yourself a really strong message like, I am important, my self-care is important, and I'm just going to connect to myself, even if it's just for one breath. And I think that can be such a powerful way to kind of start the day. No matter what else then happens in your day, you've just had that moment.
Mm, I love that. And you have a lovely, it's a good segue. You have a lovely meditation for us. Tell us about the meditation you have, and I will also leave the link here too.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I have a healthy boundaries meditation. It's really a guided meditation. And guided meditation is great if you've never tried meditation and you're not sure about sitting still. But it will talk you through some ways to think about those boundaries and to allow yourself to start creating some of those healthy boundaries. So it's not long, but it's there for people who want to dip into a bit of meditation and to also think about how their boundaries might be able to be a bit stronger so they can prioritize their own needs.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing it with us. And
You're
I know
welcome.
we said this on your podcast. I could talk to you for hours about running. Um, and I want to come visit where you live, but please tell everyone where they can find you, and where you hang out, on the web and social media, etc.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so my website is resilience physician coaching, all in one long word.com. People can find me there. They can also find me on Instagram. I'm Dr. Rachel Beanland, and my podcast is called Authentic Tea. So if you would like to come over to my podcast, do take a listen. Michelle is going to be there, an amazing conversation that we've had. And I have lots of guests on there who are sharing their own stories of their careers in medicine and thinking about mindfulness and more holistic approaches to health too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful podcast. So everybody, after you're done listening to this, head on over there. And I'll leave the links here below also. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for listening, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you liked it, please subscribe and share it with a friend. And if you are a newer runner or a runner who hasn't run in a while and you're looking to get back into the sport, you can find out how to work with me over on my website, which is mindful-marathon.com. See you on the next episode.